Hello, welcome back to Transfer Insiders with me, Mark Goldbridge. That music, Rice Baby, Vanilla Ice. It's just giving me nightmares. I'm sure you all saw the clip yesterday. Probably the worst announcement video I've ever seen. I'm all for fan content creation, but it was dreadful. But I'll tell you what's not dreadful. Declan Rice to Arsenal. Have they finally found their Vieira replacement? And what I mean by that is they've had plenty of midfielders in there, but Vieira, I have to admit, was iconic in that Arsenal team, especially when they were going head-to-head with Manchester United and Sir Alex back in the late 90s, early noughties. And Declan Rice has completed his deal to join Arsenal, a Saturday announcement, £100 million plus 5 in add-ons, 24 years of age, moving from West Ham, 5-year contract. These are some of the words that Declan Rice had to say himself. I've been looking at Arsenal over the last couple of seasons and the trajectory they've been on. Not last season, but the season before, they finished 5th. But you could see the style of play that Mikel was implementing. Last season was an outstanding season, blowing pretty much every team out of the water, with the exception of Manchester City. Just how good can Declan Rice be for Arsenal? I personally think the price is irrelevant. I think that Declan Rice is a player that... well, he's a leader for a start. From a very young age at a team where it's very demanding, he has been a real impactor on that West Ham side. And we saw it at the end of last season, but he's been doing that for a few years now. And I think that this step up to play in a team where there's a hole in the team for him to go into, and a team that's going to be in the Champions League and a team that wants to challenge for big trophies, I think it's absolutely the right deal for everybody there. And I think there's a lot of clubs, Manchester United, Chelsea, maybe even Man City, of course, that were interested in taking Declan. And I think Arsenal and Arteta have done a fantastic job in making sure that they were at the front of the queue throughout this process. The price is interesting. There always are going to be people who say, well, that's the British player tax. And of course, that's true. We've seen it with Grealish. We've seen it with others. We've seen it with Harry Maguire. But I don't really think of the price with Declan Rice. I think of the player, and I think that the volume of clubs that we're looking at him, Bayern Munich and Tuchel as well, he's a really special player. And in the modern game, I think that leadership, he's still very young, really, at 24. I think he goes into that Arsenal side and gets better. I think Declan Rice is universally appreciated in the game as having more to his game. At West Ham, they're a bit defensive, they're a bit organised, and Declan Rice sits there in front of that defence and conducts. I think he was like in the top 3 in the Premier League last season for carrying the ball, like dribbling with the ball from deep. Imagine, and he can score a goal. And some of the reports you get from people who train with him is that he's a bit of a baller as well. So I think in a side that's going to be more on the front foot naturally, Arsenal, we're going to see more of that side of the game that Declan Rice, which for understandable reasons at West Ham, was suppressed. So I think it's really, really interesting where this goes. And even though it's Arsenal and being a United fan, ideally you don't want it to work out, but I'd be very surprised if it didn't. So I think that Arsenal, look, comparing him to Vieira is ridiculous. This is what we do. But I do think that they finally got a player in there that isn't just a good player, but is also a leader as well. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a very fruitful relationship between Declan Rice and Arsenal over the coming years. And I think it's a long-term signing as well. So, yeah, very interested. Get your calls in about that as well. We have still obviously got this news coming in about Harry Maguire, the captaincy there. Just looking at YouTube, actually, there's a comment there just went through saying Onana is now the best goalkeeper in the Premier League is outrageous. Well, it's only outrageous because he's not officially signed for Manchester United yet. I'm more than happy to take your calls on that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the Onana I saw in the Champions League final, and it was the Champions League final, was absolutely incredible. And I think that I think he will offer a lot to Manchester United and this Premier League. I mean, I'm a big fan of Alisson. I think Alisson's a top goalkeeper. Ramsdale had a good season. But we'll get into that in a little bit more because there are some calls lined up here that I want to get into. But I'm certainly open to that. I think Onana comes in and I put him straight away in as the second or first best goalkeeper in the league when he signs. Let's go to Jack, who's a Manchester United fan, says it's time for Harry Maguire to move on. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, not bad, Mark, yourself.
Yeah, good. So what's your initial reaction to this Maguire thing? Because a few people have said if he's going to leave anyway, you don't need to take the captaincy off him. And why isn't he leaving?
So I think that Ten Hag obviously took the captaincy off him to try and push him out the door a bit more, tell him that his role's not there, rather than spelling it out, saying he's, like you said before, he's fifth choice now. But I think you look at it, he's been a good servant to the club. He's been very professional throughout his career with Man United. I think under the Solskjaer era, he was exploited massively. The Solskjaer's tactics were horrendous. The midfield were non-consistent. And early Maguire was actually a good signing for United. There was no one alongside him. I don't get why he played him left side of the centre-back and Lindelof on the right side, when they were both stronger-footed on the other side. But then again, Ten Hag came in, he's given him a chance, and sadly, he's not lived up to it. And the football's moving on, he's still very slow on the ball. He slows the game down terribly. You can see that in Ten Hag's language on the sideline, pushing it out to Maguire. And sadly, the football's moved on, but Maguire's not capable of going with it, so it's his time to leave.
You know what, Jack? I'll throw this back to you. I think I never agreed really with Solskjaer giving him the captaincy so soon. I think that it's too late now, but I often wonder if, I think now, I don't often wonder, but I wonder if Harry Maguire hadn't been given the captaincy so soon and had been allowed to focus on becoming a Manchester United player, whether it would have ended any differently. Because when he was given that captaincy, he wasn't established. A lot of people after those first few months were like, so he's done all right. But it takes time to establish yourself as a Man United player, and to come from Leicester and be the Man United captain within 4 months. Do you think it was given to him too soon?
Yeah, I kind of do. But at the same time, I sort of understand it that Solskjaer wanted to put his own stamp on the side.
Yeah.
New signing, fresh men in, and saying that this is my era, this is my captain that I want to set my side forward. Because if Solskjaer's era sort of finished how it started, it could have been quite successful. 18 games unbeaten, and Maguire that were playing quite well. England side, England that have got a semi-final of the World Cup and then a final of the Euros, and Maguire's at that heart of the defence. So he's not a bad player, like I say, he's been a good professional, but the players around him, I go back to Solskjaer's tactics, the midfield were non-existent. You've got your Pogba's, Fred, McTominay, that were just no leadership there. Maguire's leadership was very minimal at the time. There was no one there to sort of hold his hand and bring him along. Whereas now there is them really strong characters in the side that are, you're pushing up, you're going third in the league, you want to go further and further. And if he's not the strongest man in the changing room anymore, he might be the strongest British man. That's a different story. But I think that basically Ten Hag's come in and said, "Well, I'll give you a chance. Show me what you can do." And sadly enough, he's not gone with the football, so it's his time to go.
Jack, thank you very much for calling in there, talking about Harry Maguire, who's obviously had the captaincy taken off him by Ten Hag today. He's put a statement out, Harry Maguire himself, acknowledging that, disappointed, but accepting of it. We've got a call coming in about Onana from Lewis, but I just want to skip Lewis for a moment and go to Jordan. I was talking about Declan Rice and how I think, even as a United fan, I think it's a really good signing. I think the price will become irrelevant because £100 million for a player that's obviously going to be there for the next 6-7 years, you do the maths. Jordan, Arsenal fan, Declan Rice will help you challenge Manchester City, in your words. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Look at the guy's attitude. He's spot on. The way he conducts himself, the way he holds himself, the way he carries himself. He's an all-rounder. And as a gooner, I am absolutely buzzing. Yeah, it's a big price, but you get what you pay for, right? And I think he's going to bring a tremendous amount of value to what is already, a squad going places. I'm absolutely buzzing. And we needed this. We really needed this.
It's interesting, Jordan, because sometimes a signing comes in, for example, let me think. Well, Kovacic goes to Man City, Manchester United sign Mason Mount. And I think that those two signings, hopefully will, on Mount's point of view, will be a good signing for Manchester United. But instantly, Declan Rice goes into Arsenal and it's more than a signing. Like, it's a personality, it's a leader. He just sort of goes into that team and it feels like it's not a new signing. It feels like he's almost just made for that role, and that's because of, like you say, the personality he's got, the leadership traits he's got. How does that midfield work for Arsenal though? Because there's talk that Partey might go. Have you got enough in there, even with Rice?
Yeah, I mean, look, you hit the nail on the head with personality. With the signings that have been made, and with him as the centerpiece, a marquee signing. Of course, we're gonna pray, or at least do what we did last year, and learn from the mistakes of last season. Yes, a lot of people will say that we bottled it. We did. It did. The pressure did get to us. Yes, it hurt. But you have to go through pain before you can reach the top, right? So we will carry. Well, they'll carry that into obviously, hopefully, the season coming. You have to, of course, you have to hit the ground running. It's all about momentum, right? But that guy, Declan Rice, absolutely spot on in terms of his attitude, personality, the way he carries himself, is everything you want in an individual in your team. As you know as well as I do, it's not even up for debate. It's very straightforward. You know what you're getting, and it's quality. It's like shopping at Marks and Spencer. You're going to get some good food, right? It's as simple as that, right? I don't know if that's a wise comparison, but I think you know where I'm going from.
I do. Jordan, thank you very much for calling in. And I think just to add to that as well, sometimes you've got to be in a title race to win a title race. And I think it's going to be really interesting how Arsenal react. And I do think that it's maybe something we can pick up a little bit later, who's had the best transfer window so far, because, Liverpool and Arsenal at the moment look like the two that, if you're basing it on the transfer window, are making the most progress and most effort to be those teams that fight or try to fight with Manchester City.